All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's 6:59. Nope, just 7 o'clock. See? Perfectly timed. And good thing I went live a minute and a half early as usual because the YouTube did not fire off correctly on the restream. But anyway, welcome to the show. It's a Thursday night. Love Thursdays. It's April 24th, 2025. And we are live wherever you like watching us. But of course, because it is Thursday night, I would like to just say it's special because we are on Badlands Media tonight as well. So hello to all of our friends that we get to see once a week. And for those of you who have never seen us before, this is Quite Frankly. We are live 5 nights a week, 7 o'clock to 9, and we do a whole bunch of fun stuff. We keep it nice and varied. And tonight we have some good material for you, and it's going to come in the form of a first-time guest, Eric Hunley. He is an author, he's an educator, host of many fantastic shows, actually, and media collaborations out there, including Eric Hunley Unstructured, and what many of you probably already know is America's Untold Stories. So that's how I found Eric, is through America's Untold Stories channel, and it's really fantastic. So he's going to join us tonight to talk about famous and also forgotten American assassinations, government science experiments, MK Ultra, the nature of the internet, and more. I'm going to be taking calls at the end of it. I think we should have enough time for at least a few. I have a couple of pieces of interesting things from the past that I want to throw out there as a little bit of show and tell at the end. I think you're going to appreciate it, and that's what we have. That's all I got for you tonight. So welcome to the show, and I hope you're all feeling well. I know I am, because it's a nice sunny day. I went up to the park with Aurora tonight, and thank God for it, because I needed some fresh air. I got her a new tee, so we're gonna be taking more rips at home. Right into a net, too. I got a batting net for her, too. So I'll probably be using it more than she does. But anyway, thank you so much, friends. And let's see, what do I have here as far as things, announcements go? Upcoming guests, just go and check out the website. We have things on schedule that are now stretching into the month of August, and more big announcements on the way, especially in the beginning of May. Early May, we'll have some pretty big announcements. Remember that the next Culture Club episode is going to be live and is going to be public. That is Film Club in May. It's going to be Monday, May 19th. We're going to be discussing The Prestige, Christopher Nolan's The Prestige. So you have until May 19th to watch it. We get together at 9 o'clock after Quite Frankly ends that night. I believe that Richard Gage is going to be on with us that evening. So it's going to be a pretty big night. The night before I go off for a little anniversary vacation with Lauren and Aurora. So put that on the calendar. But of course, remember, the guest calendar is on quitefrankly.tv. With that, I mean, that's all I got to say. No, not at all. That's not all I had to say. Badlands Media, are you guys going to Plymouth? The Great American Restoration Tour, Plymouth, Massachusetts. That's May 1st through May 4th. 2025. There'll be a whole bunch of people there, including the head honcho John, Chris Paul, Zach Payne. I heard that there's going to be a dunk tank at the GART event in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and Zach is actually going to be the one on the plank. So go, ladies and gentlemen, to Plymouth, Massachusetts for that stop, the Great American Restoration Tour, May 1st through May 4th, 2025. You can get all the information at badlandsmedia.tv/events. And make sure you say, Frank, Quite Frankly sent me, and he told me there's going to be a dunk tank. Demand the dunk tank. That's the only way that America is going to be great again. If we start dunking people in water, especially if it's against their will. Okay, with that, let's get it started, because we're going to be joined by our guest for the evening in just a few minutes. And I can't wait to do this. Talk to you in a moment.
You wanted to overrun us and poison us and take our families and kill us? You will die!
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's
Yes. Dog. Dank. Okay. Welcome to Dark Dankly Frankly. That's your nightly dose of dark and dank. There is no hope. All right, so welcome to the show. It is the 24th, as I say. You know, speaking of hope, Harvard Youth Poll. Did you see this before we bring our guest on? We have a couple more minutes. Harvard Youth Poll. This is something else, especially from everybody at Harvard. You think that they would believe that they have a leg up. Is this from Harvard? Wait, did they poll? A new national poll. Oh, it's a national poll. From the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy School reveals a generation navigating financial hardship, frayed social bonds, and declining trust in institutions. Well, that's good with the declining trust in institutions, because you know what it is? Most of the institutions that everybody has declining trust in should never have been there in the first place. So it's good that they feel betrayed by them. The only question is whether or not they are going to come up with the proper remedy for that betrayal, which is get rid of it. There is no reform. There's no reason for reform. You are at the bottom end of the slippery slope. But of course, the people who are coaching them and how to see the world are letting them know it's because we probably didn't go far enough left. As the nation confronts generational turnover and the volatile political climate, the 50th edition of the Harvard Youth Poll revealed what mattered most to young Americans and what they're losing faith in. Among the key findings, more than 4 in 10 Americans under 30 say that they're barely getting by financially, while just 16% report doing well or very well. Fewer than half feel a sense of community, with only 17% reporting deep social connection. 15% believe the country is heading in the right direction. Fewer than 1/3 approve of President Trump or either party in Congress. Traditional life goals are shifting. Only 48% of young Americans say having children is important. Young people who believe this is an important one. Young people who became socially isolated during COVID report higher rates of depression, especially those who are entering high school or college during the pandemic. There you go. That's the gift. That's the gift that the people in charge of our beautiful institutions gave you all. And support for U.S. involvement abroad remains low. Good. Sharply divided by party. And 19% trust the federal government to do the right thing most or all the time. Well, once again, what's the federal government supposed to be doing? Barely anything. And that's where the real problem lies, my friends. Okay, so we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff tonight. Actually, a lot of those institutions that we just talked about are going to be put under the microscope. And our guest is Eric Hunley. Now, Eric Hunley is a podcaster. He's an author, an educator based in Hampton, Virginia. He hosts the Unstructured podcast, where he conducts in-depth interviews with diverse guests, including body language experts, law enforcement, spies, lawyers, focusing on human behavior and unique life stories. That's the kind of stuff I just love. He also co-hosts America's Untold Stories, along with Mark Gruber. This is how I found Eric Hunley. I can't wait to talk to him. He's showing up right now. Eric, it's an honor to have you on tonight.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Your volume was low. Eric, it's an honor to have you on tonight.
Okay. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's good. Good night, and it's starting to warm up over here, and I'm feeling good. So before we get into the stuff I had set aside for us tonight, I just noticed that yesterday you published a video covering Operation Sea Spray on your Proven Conspiracies channel. I was thinking about this story just over the Christmas break, when we were getting reports of that mysterious powdery fog all over the East Coast. Could you summarize this story for the audience quickly? Because it's one of those red pill stories. I love when people hear.
Okay, the short version of it is essentially in 1950, they wanted to test, and by they, I mean the government, specifically the military, with the Navy, Army, whatever, for Dietrich, what would happen and could we handle a biological strike? What would be the result of it? And what better way than to actually biologically strike a couple cities? It started with Norfolk, Virginia, which a lot of people don't even realize this happened before the more famous one in San Francisco, which is officially Operation Sea Spray. And they released a bacteria called Serratia. I believe that's how it's pronounced. One of those tricky ones to say. And essentially, it's harmless. So the idea was, if we release the Serratia on a coastal city, let's see how it spreads. And, does it get picked up? Well, it turns out that it did get picked up, and some guy who was in the hospital getting a treatment for his prostate, I believe it was, he got infected and died.
You know what I don't understand with that is that if you just wanted to be able, what was the actual test? I mean, why use a bacteria at all? Oh, well, it's a harmless one. It's not going to, is it just that they want to be able to see if it showed up in people's bodies
right.
or?
It's got to spread, right? I mean, a bacteria has got to spread. If it's bio warfare, then it's got to be some sort of biology. Does it die? Does it survive? Does it, get picked up by somebody here? There are a lot of factors with biological warfare to consider. I did NBC back when I was in the Army. And honestly, it's stupid. 90% of the time, it's incredibly stupid to use. Chemical weapons, while evil, make more sense because you spray the chemicals and they're inert. You're not going to go catch whatever you're spreading. And a lot of people feel, this is hijacking the subject a little bit, but this is tied into Lyme disease.
Oh.
That Lyme disease is a biological development that has gone wonky.
Absolutely. And I was actually going to ask you about that. If you had ever done any work into the Lyme disease subject. I live over here in Westchester County, New York. I'm right on the Long Island Sound. Right on the Sound. So, so at the end of that, of course, is Plum Island. And the first time it was brought up to me, this was before, I think there was a congressman or something, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, that had actually brought this up and put it on the official record, that there is some responsibility that may have to be taken here. And when you look at Plum Island's, it's parallel to Lyme, Connecticut, pretty much. And you wonder, what flew away from Plum Island, went to Lyme, and found its way onto some, some deer or something like that. And what I had read is that was initially going to be some sort of a biological weapon that potentially could have targeted Russian livestock, but instead it's now getting us.
I mean, well, the speculations that came out of Operation Paperclip, and that the scientist Eric Traub was part of Paperclip, came here, worked with the Nazis, as one would. We like them. They're very well-trained scientists. They're good for rockets, biowarfare. We also have the Japanese scientists, Shiroichi, I believe it is. I interviewed A.W. Finnegan, who wrote the book The Sleeper Agent, on that, on the Eric Hunley channel, if anybody wants to check that out.
And I hope they do. I have your link tree in the description of this episode, and I will be plugging it over and over again. These are the reason why I wanted to open up with this is because I just saw it today, but these are the kinds of stories that really, I believe, allow a person to, for the first time maybe, question the intentions of central authorities. And I really appreciated what we saw in 2020 going into 2021 when they were, trying to push certain products that were coming out of the pharmaceutical industry at that time. And a lot of people in the media were really wringing their hands over why so many Black Americans were hesitant to go and get inoculated. And what I loved about the whole thing, they were quoting Tuskegee. And I applauded them. I said, yes, these are learning moments. And you should remember these stories, because when the government shows up and says, trust us, we're going to lead you through this situation that popped up on an election year, you should think twice about what their intentions may be.
Well, yeah, there's a lot with the whole rollout, and I'll be careful because obviously you're on YouTube, so we have to monitor our language and self-censor to survive YouTube.
Yeah.
But essentially, a lot of what you see that went down there is for the purpose of emergency use authorization. Like, remember, there were certain things like, quote, horse paste and hydrochloroquine, which we couldn't say for a while. Now we can say the word, that were just vilified. Like, that you cannot do that. You can't treat, you cannot use that. The reason was because it would have stopped the rollout of the vaccine. And I don't know if you realize all of that, but the quote unquote vaccine, first off, isn't really a vaccine. It's a treatment. They changed the definition of vaccines to make that fit. But if, in order to get emergency use authorization, because they didn't have enough time to fully test it and say that it was okay, you had to say that it was, first off, a crisis, and second off, there was no other way to treat it. So if these other drugs were technically able to treat it or effective at all, then you couldn't get the rollout of Project Warp Speed, which, by the way, was Trump. Okay. I want to, people, you need to get your records straight on that. It's easy to blame Biden for everything, and Biden, believe me, carries a lot of it, but Trump's hands aren't clean on the vaccine rollout either. Warp Speed was his project.
It's and like I said, in knowing any kind of perspective on this type of history and this kind of thing, these types of operations, it arms a person in, precedent-setting situations like we had 5 years ago. So I hope everybody goes out there and takes a look at this upload you just put out there for Operation Sea Spray, because it's one to commit to memory, no doubt. Hey, America's Untold Stories is one of the best out there, I believe. How did you and Mark come together to start that? Because the dynamic between you two really makes the show, aside from the subject matter and your breadth of knowledge. But how did you guys come together and collaborate on that initially?
Well, ironically speaking, I just said I got to be careful because this is YouTube. Well, in 2021, on Valentine's Day, and YouTube's birthday, by the way, I was doing an episode as interviewing with a crypto CEO. And in the middle of the episode, my friend David Freiheit, Viva Fry, texted me and said, "There's something wrong with your feed?" And I was like, "What?" So I'm doing the interview. I literally just crossed 15,000 subs. It's a great day, great interview. Everything's going on. And I look and there's an email saying, "We've taken your channel down." Or, "Well, we've deleted your channel." Essentially, that's what it was. My whole channel was deleted. This is the Eric Hunley Unstructured channel, whatever. That is the first channel. And after I went through a whole lot of stress, I have friends like Viva Fry, Robert Barnes, People's Pundit, and they all were swinging for me. And Rumble even put me on the front page with the video that was taken down, because fortunately StreamYard actually kept recording it. So even though I couldn't get into YouTube or anything else, the channel was completely deleted. It was taken down. I managed, through crowd pressure or whatever, YouTube put it back up. They had to pull it off a backup, and they did say it was an error. I'm like, well, how about you just freeze the channel and then talk to me? I mean, literally deleting the channel. I've been a paid member of YouTube Premium or whatever it's called since 2008. I could not even log into YouTube to view a video. My account was gone. So I was like a non-person. But anyway, set aside, they did put everything back. And when I came back on, the first interview I had scheduled was a panel. I do a lot of panels um, with two FBI agents who were counterintelligence and Jack. Oh God, you just slipped my name, which I feel terrible about. Jack Barsky, who was a KGB mole who lived in the United States for 16 years
Wow.
undercover and was never caught until after, he had already quit the KGB and was just continuing to live here. And I heard from this guy, this freaking Lord Buckley character. I don't know who the hell it was on X saying, "Hey, not for nothing here, Hunley, but you get your channel down, and the first thing you're doing is talking to spooks."
I know.
And I replied to him and I said, "Well, hey, at least, one of them's KGB, so it's kind of balanced here."
Yeah.
And anyway, he kind of laughed because he started DMing me saying, "Hey, that's cool. I'm Mark Robert. I was an editor at National Lampoon, blah, 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 blah." And I think he said, he's done some stuff with Dr. Drew. I looked up an interview with Dr. Drew from like 2011. I found one or somehow got one, listened to it, and I just loved what he was telling the story about the history of alcohol, which I had no idea about, modern alcohol and grain alcohol and how that was gin and, like the term ginned up or whatever. There was like Gin Warrior. Anyway, he's just really great storyteller on that. And we had just like continuous phone calls, just about everything. And this guy was like, "Oh my God, he knows this guy. He does that. He does this. He works with Oliver Stone. He hangs out with Robert Downey Jr. and other people, Ringo Starr, whatever." And it's just like tale after tale after tale after tale. And it was like, okay, well, he's going to come on. First one, everybody really liked it. And the idea was that, hey, he's going to come on and this is on, again, this channel, Eric Hunley. We started with, I think it was just, his overall stories about him. And then we decided to do a CIA trilogy. So CIA in Hollywood, because he wrote the script for the movie called The Recruit. It had Al Pacino in it
Mm.
and Colin Farrell. He never is credited, however, because it was taken over by the CIA. And he found that out in court through a lawsuit. So, Marcus, not only do we talk about it in our, episode CIA in Hollywood, there is a book called CIA in Hollywood, written by a professor out of Texas A&M or one of those schools, that also features Mark's story along with other stories about the CIA interacting with Hollywood. We did that one. We did a couple others. We did some RFK. And then, if you know Mark, you've been watching him long enough, he's on the phone with him saying, "Hey, Hunley, we got to pick it up or I'm going to die." So we were doing like a once a monthly thing. And essentially, I decided, okay, so if we're going to do a weekly show, let me go ahead and split that into another channel. It's only right. And then that way we could split whatever there is, if it's going to make any money or anything else. I did that, built the channel. Within a month, it was nuked by YouTube.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's doing well now, though, no?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was nuked by YouTube for copyright claims by an asshole who did the Elliott Smith documentary. Got mad by the clips that I used for the episode. So he went boom, 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 three, copy claims at the same time, which gave us 3 strikes. Boom, the channel's gone. I submitted, fought it. I mean, so it was 3 weeks old before it was nuked. And we had already over 1,000 subs, just about, not quite 4,000 hours, to get monetized, right away. And I was like, you know what? Hell with that. So I built the channel again. There's this guy, Jason Goodman, who has a channel called Crowdsource the Truth. And if anybody's familiar with him,
I am.
You'll know that there's a number at the end, and there's usually 2 of them. So I think at that point it was like Crowdsource the Truth 5 or 6, because he would constantly get them nuked, and he would just build another channel and stick a number on the end. And I was like, well, you know what? If this guy's doing that, screw it. The channel's 3 weeks old. I'll just build a copy of the channel. And I rebuilt America's Untold Stories. The next day, Alec Baldwin shot Helena Hutchins.
Well, I mean, the way that it came together, I'm glad it did. It's really provided a lot of entertainment and a lot of things. I mean, I didn't know any of this so much. For example, one of the best ones that you guys did, well, one of the first ones that I really watched and rewatched again was your video on the assassination of President Garfield, and it actually I marked it down because if you and I ever spoke, I'd love to be able to bring that and other things into our discussion. Just so happens that we have now, the orders from the White House, executive orders to declassify several contemporary, or I should say modern assassinations. We'll talk about that tonight here too, but I learned a lot about that. There's one thing that stuck with me, including the shocking emphasis that was put on what we would call medical malpractice with James Garfield. The bullet wound that wasn't life-threatening, but that the doctor probing for the bullet was using dirty tools, and he eventually died of sepsis because of the actual doctor trying to fish out the bullet that had hit him. And I didn't know that. And honestly, it was only until 2 Christmases ago that I realized that something similar happened with George Washington. Something ridiculous like that as well. I said, oh, he died of pneumonia. That's what we grew up thinking. But really, he died of being made to drink mercury, and they essentially bled him to death. And you just think about it, if there was any modern semblance of modern medicine in the room, James Garfield would have had a much different end. And that's something. Yeah, that's a good amount of stuff that I get from you guys all the time now.
Well, on that note, it is a side thing, but you realize that the guy who said, hey, it would be a good idea to wash your hands, was run out of medicine, humiliated, mocked. I don't know, the full story, but I mean, I think he even went into an asylum after a while. He was the one who said doctors should wash their hands between treating people. I think it may be causing problems and spreading disease. And he was not appreciated. That guy was run out of town, completely vilified. After he died, well, I think he's kind of been proven right. Washing hands between handling patients, good idea.
It would be a good idea, wouldn't it? On with the Garfield thing, that video really reminded me how little the average person, including myself, knows about just the Gilded Age in America. We've been talking a little bit about that in the last few weeks. It's come up every once in a while, but you think about that those years between 1870 till about 1910, where you have Reconstruction, the Industrial Revolution. We essentially had a president assassinated every 20 years. It definitely needs to be studied more. And I just think that's crazy. It really is. And another person in that I wanted to ask you about, because if you did Garfield, I wonder what you knew about McKinley, because with Trump 1.0, we heard a lot about Andrew Jackson. He came in, put Andrew Jackson's portrait up on the wall. Trump 2.0, as he's coming in, there's been a lot of tipping of the cap to William McKinley. This time around, he not only got his mountain back, he got Denali back, but Trump's been praising him on tariffs, at least from a reciprocity level. I know that there's a lot of difference here, but the reciprocity thing, I understand. But there's a lot of people who would say that McKinley's assassination was tied to his tariff policies, but also the Jekyll Island group, who were hell-bent on establishing that as central bank and eventually got it, 13, 12 years down. Do you buy any of that? What do you think about those Gilded Age?
Jekyll Island, I don't know about that, especially because McKinley was solidly for the gold standard. And if I recall, most of the Jekyll Island crowd liked the gold standard, but I haven't paid attention to that. I think he was a little bit before that time. But I mean, as far as McKinley goes, interesting guy. The tariffs are very much associated with him, not only as president, but he was the chair on the Ways and Means Committee in Congress. and the head of that, because he was first he was in Civil War, and he went into the Civil War as a private and came out as a major. He had three battlefield promotions and was a major war hero. And his promotion, he was called a brevet major, which is an interesting thing. It's technically he's given this rank, but he's not technically a major for real. It's like an honorary rank, if you understand what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
that tells you about the heroism. It's like this guy's so good. Hey, he's a major. And all the way through his life, that was the one title he liked to be called. So even as president, they call him the major. And he said, because I feel like I earned that one.
Well,
But
I think he died 1901. They say an anarchist.
yes.
And that's something I need a little bit of background on there too, because what does anarchist mean in 1901? It's only there's always terms now. What does a conservative and a liberal mean in 2025 versus 1970? I mean, so I look at this headline over here from 1901 and I think, what the hell does it even mean?
Best way I can explain it, because I'm not deep in their philosophy, but the anarchist is Leon Czolgosz is the name. He was a carpenter, handyman, whatever, kind of laborer. He sort of did everything. He was fired for multiple jobs, and then he was a striker, and he was blacklisted. But the anarchists of the time were essentially people who despised the government and any industrialists. They were. I mean, if you take Occupy Wall Street and just like amplify that times 1,000, Antifa, all of these things come out of it, and they're a little different because, like, communists were into the Bolsheviks, and things like that. The anarchists hated the communists too. But they're very similar. There was a lot of overlap. I don't know if that makes sense, but they essentially hated the government. They hated all rulers. The whole idea of anarchy ultimately is to have no government, that it's just going to be the worker. And to be fair, the late 1800s, early 1900s were really rough time for the worker, so to speak. And we had child labor problems. We had the meat packing, stuff that came out. I forget the name of the author on that, but I mean, it was hard, brutal labor.
I can imagine that's probably where the tariffs come in then. If it really is just as simple as that, an anarchist from an anarcho-capitalist standpoint would hate tariffs from its protectionist standpoint, and they would want the market to be free, whereas tariffs can be and have been used as a monopolistic tool in the past, for sure.
All right, well, it's tricky because first off, and what I think is interesting is the tariffs during McKinley are different than now, or at least the makeup of the entire workforce is very different now. So really, the tariffs are very helpful for any kind of industrial job, for factory workers, for urban workers, things like that. But who they harmed, especially back then, was agricultural workers. So the farmers, etc., because it would cost more for them to get it, and they would struggle to ship their products out. So there's always this give and take. Now, during McKinley's time, ag was 40% of the workforce. Do you know what the percentage is now for agricultural workers?
I would 6.
1 to 2.
Wow.
So it's really, and then the industrial, like manufacturing is like 8 to 10 now. So it's kind of like hard to compare and contrast. Another big difference. Do you know what else tariffs did during that time?
What'd they do?
They funded the entire government.
Oh, yes. Yes. And
They did not have an income tax. Tariffs were how the government made money. So if you look at it, yes, they were protectionist, but in the defense of McKinley, in 1890, all the Republicans were run out of town, right? McKinley lost his seat in Congress. There was a huge turnover. All the Republicans pretty much lost big time, right? But then by 1893, there was a panic of like 1893. They called it the Great Depression at the time. And it was the worst depression the country had ever seen until the Great Depression in the 30s. Over, what was it, 19 or 20% of unemployment rate. Think about that. 1 out of 5, no job. So it was brutal. When McKinley came in 95, 96, he came in hot. He came in with the tariffs, and he turned the entire economy around.
See, well,
We were booming.
and I know, from what little I did know there too, that toward the end, I think a lot of his sights were set on what we're talking about now, all these years later, which is reciprocity, as opposed to just really trying to stick it to people or to create.
Yeah, it was protective.
Yeah,
they were protection tariffs, and who were the first people they were protecting? The American worker. I mean, look what we have right now. We've seen that post World War II, we had Germany and Japan, and we were like, okay, after World War I, we did the Treaty of Versailles. How did that work out? Well, it led to World War II, because we said to Germany, we're going to bleed every dollar, every single thing you have, whatever, and that enabled essentially the Nazi Party to come up, because you crushed them. You crushed this country so badly that they turned to a madman, to a monster, and we're all hell-bent on revenge. So after World War II, occasionally we can learn our lesson. We said, hey, maybe if we help them rebuild, both them and Japan and others in Europe, maybe they're not going to go a little bit nutty and, as Norm Macdonald say, declare war on the world.
again.
Again.
Well,
I'm sorry, I did this Norm Macdonald thread. That's my favorite thread. I went completely viral, but I love Norm Macdonald. But anyway, that was, there was a degree of wisdom there. Part of what they did, though, is they allowed Germany and Japan to have protectionist tariffs. So we were like, we're not going to tariff anybody. We'll buy your stuff. We'll buy your stuff. And for a while, it was fine. Remember, the Japanese cars were all cheap and junk and blah, 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 blah. They were the junky cars. Well, then eventually they weren't junky cars. And even during, on my lifetime, I don't know how old you are. I'm in my 50s. So I lived through Reagan as a teenager and on. I saw the Japanese cars got really good. And then after that, what do we have? We had the Korean cars, right? And we had Hyundais, which are garbage. And then they got better. They're pretty good. Then there were Kias. They were garbage. Hyundai owns them now, but they're no longer garbage. So it's all these cars, all these things, they got better and better and better. Meanwhile, all of our labor left. All of our factories are going down. It's like, hey, you know what? It's just so much cheaper to buy it from overseas, do whatever. And this helped out the elite classes, and it completely gutted all of our manufacturing, all of our base. Meanwhile, ag's not doing any better because we just kept consolidating that. I mean, why do we have 1 to 2% of the population? Well, industrialization and consolidation.
I know. Yeah.
We only have very few owners of so much, unless like Bill Gates. But
And there's so much being raked in at the at higher level and also clandestine levels there too, and it's interesting to see all the narratives about protecting the little guy and all that get flipped on its head. Now you have members of Congress that come up with new ways to defend going and taking advantage of what is essentially, in comparison to our standards, slave labor from all over the world. The defenses that are there constantly, and I always thought about that. Obviously, when it comes to McKinley's death, this is always at the forefront. It's mainstream. This is what we all think. but there is always just it's you talk when you talk about untold stories. I just wonder if there was an untold story about that assassination, and we can move on to something else here too, because now when we get into the 20th century assassinations, I don't want to spend too much time on JFK because it's been done a lot lately. I know you do it a lot, and those were the first files that were opened up, the 70,000 documents or so. But before we move on,
or many before that. So it's been since '92. There have been records dropping throughout the years, more
right.
and more and more.
Yeah.
Hundreds
But to your point, with the dribs and drabs that we've gotten over the decades, the conventional way of thinking about that is if there was ever anything of like real shock value that was preserved, it was going to be held back. And then, these big reveals that we got over the last few weeks, that's when, if you were going to see anything, you'd see something. So before I move on to MLK, let me just ask you about JFK. Was there any one thing in particular that excited you or shocked you for seeing, validated any thought you had in the past?
We're still going through it. Okay. Honestly, there's so much there. There's most of the documents, again, they're already out. And so some of these are already released before, and they, unredacted some of the information. But there hasn't been a quote unquote smoking gun. We're looking for more. Mark's obsession on this, and Mark is by far, Mark is the one who brought JFK into my life, is about Oswald in Mexico. And we just were talking to Paul Blow on Tuesday, that came up too. The whole narrative of Oswald in Mexico is so critical right now, and we feel like the documents are being released in a pattern the way they are, and the guy in charge that's helping Luna, we have mixed feelings about him. But anyway, the narrative that was being drawn is that Oswald was in Mexico at the embassy, and that he was trying to meet with the Soviets to, coordinate things with Cuba, right? And ultimately, through David Atlee Phillips, etc., the idea was through the fair play for Cuba and Soviet involvement, that the Soviets, because remember, Oswald's a defector, quote unquote defector, let's put it that way, that Oswald killed JFK for the Soviets. And, well, would that matter now? Well, I don't know. Might. We do have a president right now who is kind of trying to get peace talks together between Russia and Ukraine. And we have a lot of people who do not want that war to end.
Correct.
So do you think it would be helpful for the peace talks if we have the narrative that, oh yeah, and that's Russia who killed, as the USSR, that's who killed JFK? That's why we think some of this stuff is coming out. So there's more of an overall narrative, but the Mexico thing is so interesting because there is a tape, everybody talks about Nixon's tapes. There was a guy taping everything before Nixon. His name was LBJ. He taped everything in the White House. And he was quite the character, and I'm being kind. There's so much dirt on LBJ. We've done multiple episodes on him. There are biggest performing episodes about, one, what he liked to do with women, and then two, he's tied to the assassination. So we have 2 episodes on did LBJ kill JFK, and 1 episode about the ladies of LBJ, if people want to check all that out. But
yeah,
there is a conversation between him and J. Edgar Hoover, where J. Edgar Hoover was saying, hey, they're reporting this guy in Mexico, and it's not Oswald. It's not the voice. We've heard it. It's not him. Now, this is there. You can go, this is a recording, and you can read the transcript. But you can't actually hear them say the words because somebody erased the tape. And it is literally online. You could go and find the recording, and it is online.
It's just everything. We were talking about the media that could have been revealed. Documents. What does it even mean? We know how much time the CIA invested into debunking conspiracy theories just to flood the country with all types of theories about what was going on, how Mockingbird was handling the assassination and all that stuff, and the media reporting the coining of the term conspiracy theorist. It's all that stuff there. So we said that, as far as these documents you see, don't necessarily there's a chance that a lot of the stuff that you see could be planted on purpose. Just
Definitely some planted documents. I forgot the specific one, but it even came up. It came up on Tuesday, I believe. Mark found the document, and I forgot. I feel bad because I forgot what went down, but Mark found the document. He was working with Oliver Stone at the time, on the Oswald screenplay. He wrote a 5-part miniseries on Oswald, and he was excited. And he shared it with Oliver, and Oliver apparently almost tore his head off and wanted to kick his ass because it was a known, that's bullshit. It was a known forgery of a document. So there was very specifically that one, and I'm sure there are many others. And then there's also the problem of like one, everybody's like, just run it through AI. Okay, how do you think the words from the documents get into AI? It's through something called OCR, optical character recognition. And I don't know if you've seen what a lot of the documents look like.
I have. Yeah, well, I mean, have not all 70,000, but I've looked at a
Right.
lot of them.
Right. Okay. Well, what you'll notice is that the really sexy ones that people send, they're like so grainy, and they're running off the edges, and the letters are all kind of overlapping. And you stick that on a scanner and say, "Tell me what it says," and it only pick up like 1 out of 8 words because the OCR sucks on it. It's very difficult to do it. And what they would do is they would, photocopy it and then twist it and photocopy and photocopy and photocopy and photocopy just to cause it to be garbage. Other ones are perfectly clean. But whenever you find it, and I actually am talking to, somebody, I'm working with somebody who's doing AI or whatever, but thinking about flagging documents that are difficult to read or have a very poor performance as a reverse filter, if you will. Like those are probably the good ones.
You mentioned, to move away from JFK there, but on to the next one. You mentioned J. Edgar Hoover, and about Martin Luther King Jr. I saw the headline. I just want your opinion on this before we move on to RFK. I saw the headline that Martin Luther King Jr.'s family did not want the files on him open because it may contain old FBI smears, and other things. And my question is this: if that 1999 civil trial found that there was government conspiracy in killing MLK and of course framing James Earl Ray, I've even heard Judge Joe Brown break that one down and blew my mind. Why would the King family be afraid that more evidence of J. Edgar Hoover's strong arming would become public? You would think that wouldn't matter. It would just be like, yeah, I know he was being harassed constantly by the feds. Why would you not? Why would you be upset about the file be opened?
Okay. Let's just say that what the FBI did, they were bullying them. It was COINTELPRO or Operation Chaos for the CIA. There were 2 concurrent programs. And if you want to read about some of that and Charles Manson, Tom O'Neill's got a great book out called Chaos. I've interviewed him. But just because they were assholes when they run wires on people doesn't mean that things weren't picked up on the wire, right? Abernathy's book, his buddy, he had written a chapter talking about, things they were doing with the ladies. And it was essentially, a very, very, it doesn't look good for a reverend, if you will. And this is all recorded. Now, and it's a mixed feeling because I feel for the family to some degree, but there are recordings of potentially him with women doing things, partying, getting down, whatever. Now, so again, two things can be true at once, right? The FBI could have been harassing the shit out of him, and they were. They even wrote a letter encouraging him to off himself.
Yeah.
And things like, so really nasty stuff. But then that doesn't mean that what was recorded didn't happen. And do you think the family wants those recordings of shenanigans? What is that going to do to his legacy? And I, you know what, I have mixed feelings on it because he is an important historical figure. And I don't, I feel like already we have a racial problem where a lot of BLM types or whatever have gone away from the MLK principle of basing people on who they are versus their skin to the complete DEI opposite of blame, doing everything for the skin. And that would actually destroy a lot of the good legacy and help drive even more of the racial problem we have. But then I also like the truth to come out. So you tell me, it is a hard call, I think, genuinely, because okay, so he screwed a lot of women and he got around. Did that make his message untrue? I don't, not necessarily. But anyway, that's why I am. Mark and I both believe completely that those recordings, which by the way, the person who signed off on those recordings was a certain attorney general known as Robert F. Kennedy.
Well, see, and there you have there we go. Here's the next one. Robert Kennedy. These files were the dark horse files for me in this year's declassification orders because this is the file that was going to have MK Ultra baked into it, whether or not it was going to tip its cap to the program altogether or not. Anybody who knows this story, I mean, Sirhan's legal counsel has maintained that he was under hypnosis for the entire time. Our new health secretary, Bobby's son, is pretty emphatic that Sirhan wasn't the killer. In fact, when he was still campaigning in 2024 as an independent, as a candidate running his own presidential campaign, he made several media stops where instead of talking about policy, he was just talking about all of the crazy details that you can tell. I mean, if this is your family's history, I would obsess over it too. I would have everything committed to memory like RFK Jr. does. But this has been out. I don't know how long it's been out for, but was anything of particular interest found in that respect from what you've seen so far?
Okay, well, I can go one further at the RFK Jr.
Okay.
He worked with Mark, my show partner, to get Sirhan paroled. Mark spoke at his parole hearing.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And they actually won parole for him, but Gavin Newsom spiked it.
Son of a bitch.
Gavin Newsom went against his own parole board. And they were working together. Mark was representing or was standing in place for Paul Schrade. Paul Schrade was in his 90s at the time. He has since passed away. Paul Schrade is the gentleman who was shot in the head by Sirhan. And he was working to get Sirhan released because Sirhan did not kill RFK. Sirhan did shoot Paul Schrade in the head, and he did shoot into the other people, and people got hurt. But the important thing, and we've already pulled one document and shared it last Friday, that it was known at the time that the shot to RFK was from 2 inches or less away. Well, why does that come into effect? Well, Sirhan was maniacally firing like crazy, right? Well, RFK was facing Sirhan. RFK was killed. He was shot twice, once in the back and once in the back of his head. How can Sirhan shoot him when he's in front of him in the back of the head? He can't. There's a guy named Thane Eugene Caesar. That's who did it, we believe. He is also passed away about a year and a half ago. We've covered that. We have 3 episodes on RFK on America's Untold Stories and Sirhan and the Pearl Area. Got pretty deep into all that. Thane Eugene Caesar then sold his gun and lied about it, saying, "No, I sold that in February." It's like, no, you actually sold it in July. After, here's the receipt. Um, anyway, he was a security guard who was hired that night. He was with RFK. RFK, when he fell down, had pulled his tie off. And one of the documents we found, or Mark found, actually, was a document literally the next day or within 2 days that said that the gunshot was from the powder and stuff was within like 2 inches. So they knew at the time. They knew it all the way back then.
Yeah, well, there's always something with the Kennedy assassinations and bullet trajectories that just don't make sense. They don't add up. That's even more egregious than his brother Jack. And but I again with this, the alibi of not necessarily insanity, but that there was some sort of a Manchurian candidacy. I mean, I've heard theories about. Well,
that's prevented him from being paroled. Ironically, Mark, and this is the interesting thing. Mark, when he argued for Sirhan's release, the first thing they want you to do is show remorse. And there's another example of that right now with the 2 brothers in California. My brain isn't working today.
Menendez brothers?
Menendez, yes. The Menendez brothers are going at it with Nate Hockman. And, Mark Garrows is their attorney. Nate Hockman saying, "Screw you, you're not going to get released. I'm going to fight it." And he's saying, "You are not saying I did it. I'm sorry. You're saying a bunch of lines like, oh, they were evil, they were bad, they were this, they were that." He said, "You got to show remorse. If you don't show remorse, you don't get a parole." And that's kind of what was going on with Sirhan. Sirhan never showed the remorse, saying, "No, I did it. I'm sorry." Mark's argument was that Sirhan had drank multiple Tom Collins, and he's like 5'2". So a 5'2" guy with like 8 Tom Collins, gins.
Yeah.
He was blackout drunk. And Mark is saying, if you're blackout drunk, you can't remember it. You cannot be, you can't show remorse. And ironically, another example of somebody who couldn't show remorse is RFK's sister, RFK Jr.'s sister. I think it was Caroline, not Caroline. Anyway, I can't keep track of him, but the one who was married to governor of New York, got pulled over.
She helped stand in the way of this as well.
Oh yeah.
So then, when you talk about alcohol, where does MK Ultra come into this? If that's not even part of the situation anymore,
MK Ultra potentially was part of it, but that's kind of like yet another thing. There's arguments about it being Jolly West. Mark feels it is actually William Joseph Bryan, not Jolly West. William Joseph Bryan, the either grandson or great-grandson of William Jennings Bryan, by the way, who ran against McKinley, if you want to go full circle here. He was like the Jolly West of L.A. He had, like a house and did hypnosis, did everything else there. But yes, there was a polka dot dress. By the way, that was another document that was found. Was the APB for the polka dot dress was in the RFK document.
And for those of you who don't know, I was going to bring that up. That's another old tidbit of the theory is that the trigger for Sirhan was this woman in a polka dot dress. That was supposed to be the mental trigger to get to action.
Yes, and it's by the way, it's very believable. All of that. Darren Brown, the British mentalist magician, has done great work proving it out. He's done it, I believe, twice now, where he created a Manchurian candidate and had them shoot somebody all the way through. Obviously it was a blank in the end, but you get the point.
Wait, was that done for television? I forget. I feel like I've seen this
It's
done.
on YouTube. You can find them on YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah.
but he did it twice. He did one, I think, one on Netflix. But he did one even years before that, and it's very interesting to watch too because it goes into the detail. It's kind of like well, it's like a reality TV series where you have all these candidates. And I don't know they're candidates, but over time they get whittled down and sent home until they find the last guy, and the guy that they used in the earlier one. This guy was so susceptible to hypnosis and so deep in it that he would get into a tub of ice, completely frozen ice water. Now, there are people who can get into that and not react, but guess what? When you get into ice water, no matter what, your heart rate and everything spikes, right? It's a very sudden environmental change. When they had him hooked up to equipment, his heart didn't even spike.
Hmm.
There was no change. That's how deep this guy was. And that is the ultimate, that's who was the Manchurian candidate for that one.
I was watching. I've watched most of it. I haven't finished it yet. When you were talking to Tom O'Neill about Charles Manson, and there's no shortage of theories that he was in some way a product of social experiments at the time that were being run by intelligence agencies, drug related, all that stuff. But when it comes to MK Ultra and mind control and all of that, I've had this discussion with a number of guests over the years, and my takeaway is that when we're considered the modern day right now where we are, that I don't doubt that individuals are still handpicked, groomed as either as celebrity figures. We see a lot of strange things with celebrity figures, and they're handlers. I mean, Kanye West
talked about it.
Yeah, well, he's that Harley Pasternak guy. His trainer or his personal trainer or something that was essentially a handler. So I get it. Celebrity figures. You have your trigger men. You have patsies. I understand it, but I tend to think that we are in a phase right now. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, just as a social commentator yourself, where we are in a mass formation phase, and the internet is far more powerful than the nightly news ever was back in the day. And I believe that as far as the ability to deliver through mass amounts of repetition, trauma-based mind control, that any narrative can be sold with far more efficiency in this digital age than way back when, and that MK Ultra is essentially a cornerstone of the culture now. I mean, we're all going through that programming. We essentially have the Oculus on our eyes. And that really comes back around to, I know you did a little talk about that a little bit. What do you think about MK Ultra as a cornerstone of the culture now, just because of the way that messages, narratives, and even just implied stuff that is done subconsciously through search engine manipulation, anything else? What do you think that does to just the culture at large? Not a Sirhan or one person that was groomed in a basement somewhere to go and do a specific task.
No, we don't need it. I mean, okay, the original MK Ultra involved heavy dosing of LSD, direct manipulation on hand, things like that. That's not really needed. I've interviewed Robert Epstein. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yes.
But he's a whistleblower at Google, and he has demonstrated perfectly how much more powerful it is. Like autocomplete is an amazing tool. When you start typing and it's like, oh, you've been to that URL, it just finishes out, you hit enter. You don't have to bother. Do you bookmark anymore, as an example? Nobody bookmarks anymore, right? Because you just type the thing. Well, when you're on Google, and by the way, it's still happening. They just got busted like just last year. You would type in Donald, or what was it? I forgot. Trump assassination, right?
Yeah.
You would type in TRU, wouldn't come up. It would not, it'd say Truman assassination, but not Trump assassination. And it goes on and on and on. So through the manipulation of the algorithms and things like that, you can have a far more devious and effective tool, if you will, to changing people's minds or to driving a narrative. Then you have the problem with the echo chambers, where we do it to ourselves.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to say it's some of it is personality based or whatever it is. But as an example, I brought on somebody last Friday for my Layback Law channel. Now, this is kind of a mixed bag because the individual leaves something to be desired in his skills in debating maturely is the best way I could put it. Like when you yell and stuff, it's kind of a pain in the ass. But a lot of people will get angry if you bring in somebody who has an alternate opinion or voice because it's like, I don't pay you for that. And you have something called audience capture. That's another factor. I don't know if you've ever looked into that, but that's something that's always kind of terrified me a little bit because I think we all suffer it a little bit. It's like, you know what? If I bring that up, I'm going to get a lot of shit for that. That's not going to do very well. I'm going to get everything in the comments. Do I really want to talk about that? Maybe I'll talk about something else. And I think we all do that, but we can get to the degree where the influencer is actually the influenced because of audience capture. So if you roll all these things together and we go even further, like all the newsrooms, the mainstream media, a lot of people are saying, it's almost like programming where everybody's saying the exact same thing and everybody reports the same thing. A lot of it's just laziness and people wanting to believe what they want to believe. Like we talk about echo chambers. Well, most newsrooms are echo chambers. Most places are echo chambers. As an example, when you go to your job, right, and a position opens up, how often does the manager say, hey, you know anybody? You know anybody who can do this? No, anybody who can work here? And who you're going to recommend? Well, your buddy. And your buddy probably is like-minded as you. Fair enough? So politically, you're kind of similar, whatever. And I'm going to say that the newsrooms, etc., have been taken over by a particular leftist thought or whatever you have, and they're inclined to believe whatever comes down the line. Now, as far as the repeated messages going out, there's a phenomenal book called Trust Me, I'm Lying by Ryan Holiday. I think it should be a required reading for everybody. One of my favorite books of all time. And he worked for American Apparel, and he talked about how he would manipulate the message to get free coverage over people with controversy or what have you. But Nancy Pelosi also talks about it, called the wrap-up smear.
Yes.
And essentially, you can drive whatever narrative you want. So like, let's say you want a news story out there. Before, they were more creative about it. How do you get the Washington Post to publish what you want? Well, you follow the reporters or the journalists or whatever. Figure out what are they reading. And a lot of times they read smaller publications, etc. So if you can, you slide the story in somewhere where they see it and it gets picked up. And then if the story gets picked up by the Washington Post, well, then guess what? Everybody will repeat the story. It'll go to NBC, Political, all of them, right? So that's how you can drive a narrative. You remember the Columbine kids?
I do. Yeah.
I believe that story came out of a Brazilian Twitter account originally.
Twitter?
Yes.
What do you mean? Wait, day of reporting?
Yes, of the kids and that whole thing going down.
Wait, Columbine was like 1998 or 99.
You know what? Okay, that's Columbine.
You talking about Marjorie Stoneman?
Kids. I apologize. Sorry, Covington kids.
Covington, okay.
Covington. Ooh, that's a horrible mistake to make. But yes, the Covington kids.
Okay.
But remember that narrative with the Indian and his face and
Yes.
oh my God, and beat him up. That started, I believe it was through a Twitter account in like Brazil or whatever, and then it got picked up. And then all of a sudden, once one person picks it up, it goes everywhere. Well, now, like with the Kamala campaign and all that going down, they don't even have to do that. They just send a press release.
Well,
So part of the reason, I was going to say, so part of the reason you hear of them reporting exactly, they're saying the same words, is because the DNC or the campaign will just send a press release and then they just print it. They don't do any check-in, they don't do any modifying, they just print whatever's sent to them.
yeah, and I think this goes into a little bit more of it's what I thought we would be able to really tie this all together with, and that's where we're leading to naturally. But some things that you were saying about certain exchanges that happened between Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson recently, and I know it was an episode that has caused some I haven't watched it. I just saw your thread, and I saw the couple of comments that was there already. And when you think about reality TV, modern day social conditioning, how things have changed for us now versus people who are at home watching Walter Cronkite at night, the whole family gathering around the television, and you're talking about one story getting picked up by multiple channel. Well, it was a lot less variety back then, but still there was a lot of parroting going on. And it's just that there was a lot more trust in institutions. And we're still the same species. We have all the same vulnerabilities. We're on more drugs than we ever have been in before. We consume more. But we have transferred a lot of our time into digital realms. And I think your analysis of Jordan Peterson's recent comments about the internet are relevant in that way. Here's one of them that you said. He was commenting on how psychopaths operate on the internet on both sides. He said they're like the Pharisees of the modern age. He says, you said they cloak themselves. Oh, wait. They cloak themselves in causes, woke, anti-woke, leftist, nationalist, even religious, not to uplift others, but to elevate themselves. It's not about justice or ethics. It's about optics, predators cloaked in principle. And you think about this. I started thinking about the other thing that he said there too. What makes this worse? Social media. Offline, these personalities are often exposed over time, but online anonymity protects them. They can signal virtue while sowing division without ever paying a cost. Now, this is where you start getting into really hot waters, because I understand there's a catch-22 here. There's big questions about anonymity. This is one of the burning questions of our time, which is often abandoned because, like I said before, a catch-22. Free, open, anonymous internet, or something more regulated, monitored by government, verified, ID attached, all big tech partners. Very fascistic right there, especially when you're talking about modern day sources of public speech. You don't even the real concern here is now. Regardless, I gravitate toward free, open, anonymous internet, and whatever, consequences be damned. We all have to grow up and learn how to discern whether something is real, not be a little bit responsible with what you put out there about yourselves. Someone in my position who works in public is a lot more exposed. I understand that, but you don't even need very many real people to make the kind of cultural impacts that Jordan Peterson is talking about in some of these clips. These are largely non-human interventions that are made at this point that can astroturf any kind of an opinion about something, get something rolling downhill. Comment sections are filled with non-human entities. So you can have a very small, it's one thing to have an organic movement.
Don't forget the idiot.
What's
They're
that?
not always not real, but there were actual idiots, or useful idiots, I'm sorry to say, who will be relied upon to spit out a similar message. So yes, some of them are bots. There are a lot of bots, but a lot of it is just people too, repeating a narrative of both sides. That's where it gets very frustrating. I mean, if you break down our entire electorate is not 100%. 60% of the electorate's irrelevant. Gone. They're just gone. You could take 30% on the right or left, however you want to call it. I think it's up and down, but 30%, they're locked in. They're tribal. They'll never vary from any means. They just whatever. They are almost NPCs, if you will. And I'm not trying to be rude. It's just reality. Um, they're so tribalized in that, they're blue no matter who, or red no matter what, whatever. So I just wanted to put that in there, that there are actual people a lot of times who just say some dumb shit.
Absolutely. And what I'm saying is that a lot of the non-human involvement in this and how operations can be launched from several computers that mimic the online activity of thousands, it influences real people who are in those chat rooms, who are in those comment sections, to see, what other accounts are saying, and it does have an effect on their outlook on a situation. That's why sometimes I almost wish that more people were just sitting back and listening to the show and not chatting, because as great as chat rooms can be, they can also totally derail what could have been a little bit more of an honest assessment of a situation without any kind of outside influence. And that's where anonymity can be a danger. But like I said, I'd rather take that and the danger than any kind of government intervention. But there's so many more places we can go, Eric. And
think of it more like hygiene. Like, how about a third option? Like, rather than a government intervention, more of a better hygiene and training amongst the viewer, listener, or watcher, whatever you want. If I see a Twitter egg, you call, there's no profile picture, whatever, and they say something, I'm like, am I going to go report that on Freeform Friday on my show? No. Now, if I see an account and I know the name and I follow them, and it's like, okay, or people I know follow them, I'm going to, that's interesting. Let me look into that. And I think that we go back to our echo chamber, which is a circle again, that we need to be better at discerning the validity of the message. Now, I want there to be anonymous voices. Anonymous voices are important, absolutely. But I am not going to take an anonymous voice as seriously as somebody else. I am going to have to verify that twice as hard. The same way as I would really like the cops to verify anonymous tips that cause swatting. It's all the same principle, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying everybody really should be doing that. And I understand the need for anonymity. We can still have that, but I think that it bears responsibility. And one of the things that I absolutely love on X is I'm part of the community notes program. So on every post, I'm seeing community notes underneath that have not been actually published. And that has helped me so much, because I see a post, I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. I'm always looking for something to cover. And then I go and I hit the community note. Why not? Oh, you know what? There's an article right there. It's exactly on point. That is, showing that the post is bullshit or doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm glad that someone like you out there is noting everything. It's good. It's good to know that the Eric Hunleys of the world are out there doing some community noting, because I never knew. I think you're the first one I know that actually has that ability. It's good.
They offered it to me. I mean, ironically, I don't write the community notes in general. I just use it to find out about them, and then I'll upvote if I think it's useful, because a lot of community notes are just whining, and you don't see all of it either, but they were like, that's a mean comment. It's like, that belongs in the comments, asshole.
There you go. Eric. Well, Eric, I really can't thank you enough for all the time you spent with us tonight, over an hour. And I'd love to have you back on again. This is the tip of the iceberg, obviously, with everything you cover. I'm interested in so much of what you do on a variety of your channels. And I'd like to just give you a couple of minutes to talk about what you do, your release schedule, your stream schedule, and of course your links are in the description of the episode. So go ahead, let everybody know how to find you and when to watch.
All right, cool. Well, Eric Hunley, you can pretty much find me with just my name. I think he's sharing the X account, and America's Untold Stories is probably my biggest program. That is the only consistent thing that I do every Tuesday and Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We do the show. It's with myself and Mark Robert. Eric Hunley, I do interviews. I've got an interview coming out. Kind of, we'll see how it goes, but with a lot of comments going lately about Israel, about Jews, things like that. I'm interviewing again somebody I interviewed before, Jeff Scoop, sorry, who is the former head of the American Nazi Party. That's going to be coming out because there's certain language out there that people don't necessarily realize it was used for that. And I also have Proven Conspiracies, which he brought up with Operation Sea Spray. That one is shorter, straightforward videos about different things that happen. MK Ultra, Operation Midnight Climax, prohibition, poisoning our citizens. All of the key factor is, though, every one of them has been proven to have occurred. Like I try to dig into where, there has been CIA releases, etc. But I'm all over the place.
Yes, you are, and thank God for it. Eric, I hope you have it back on again. I hope to have you back on again, and I hope you have a good night tonight. Thank you so much for the time.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, there you go. Eric Hunley for his Quite Frankly debut. I loved it, and I hope you did too. Let's take I just want to take a moment real quick, ladies and gentlemen, to let you know that if you want behind-the-scenes glimpses into the nightly production, access to special content like the Sunday streams and the Quite Frankly Culture Clubs, please consider becoming a monthly sponsor on Patreon, Subscribestar, or directly through quitefrankly.tv/sponsor. There's a fun menu of sponsorship options starting at just $5 a month, and all of it helps Quite Frankly remain independent as well as planning for the future. So for the rest of April and into May, I'm giving away coffee, Keto Brainz samples to all new sponsors, as well as a pressed copy of my band's 2017 album for the first 20 people who sign up for $10 or more. All right, back to the show. So here's what we got going on. I want to open up the lines, and I'm going to just ask you, what do you think about tonight's show? What do you think about the topics that came up? Do you have anything you want to add? Anything you want to ask? I'm going to get to your super chats in a second as well. And, one topic I can offer you up is your thoughts on free, open, anonymous internet. Now, I don't know how free the internet is right now. Where do you think that there's something that needs to be regulated? Do you think that there is some sort of a way where people can have a reasonable right to privacy, but also be held accountable to defend their position without it, I don't know, without it just, without being completely veiled in anonymity, and there's also a lot of lurkers out there that just never really care about saying much. They just want to observe, they want to watch, and they reserve their opinions for themselves. But I wonder about you. And here's where it comes down to something to consider here. In 1999, I had to go check this out. In 1999, with 6 billion people officially living on Earth, 4.1% of the world was on the internet. Okay, 4.1% of the world was on the internet. Now, you think about the internet in the late 90s, early 2000s, and how it really was the Wild West. And you can say whatever you want, publish whatever you want, and it's mainly was, it was that way because there's only 4% of the people on the world. Anybody who needed any information was still going to print. They were still going to television. That's just the way it was. It was a non-factor. It was, you couldn't even do good research on the internet for a paper. You still had to go to a library and take out some books. You need to know that Dewey Decimal System and go get it. That was in 1999, 4.1% of the world, 6 billion people. Today, 8.2 billion people officially, 68.7% of the world is on the internet today. Okay? Why do I bring it up? Well, what percentage of nearly 6 billion internet users understand things like search engine manipulation effect? It is very powerful. And you say, well, it's just up to people to take responsibility. We have to, yeah, nearly, 5 point something billion people. You ain't teaching them shit. A lot of them are just fresh spring lambs, completely naive. And as we know with things like Dr. Robert Epstein with the search engine manipulation effect, a lot of that is subconscious impacts on the brain, and it directly impacts the way that people act, especially how they act in a voting booth with those demographic swings in voter favorability that can be moved by up to 62, 63%. It was crazy. That's just being able to see in your peripheral vision those headlines that populate on the right side or the left side of the screen or whatever the hell it is. So, you think about that, or, how up to be are people with understanding how to distinguish between what's real, what's organic, what opinions are being astroturfed through artificial means, like I was saying before. I mean, you seriously don't need very many real people to start making the kind of trending impacts on the internet that you think. If you have the resources and you're savvy enough, then you know how to get people's attention. But that leads me back to my take on MK Ultra's relevance today. And whereas there's probably individual candidates and assets that are groomed in private for one specific task or another, you don't need it anymore. And Eric said something about listen, when the egg figure on Twitter or X says something, and you don't know who they are and you can't verify what they're saying, just don't talk about it on your shows. Don't put too much stake in it. But that's not totally the whole point. Obviously, I would never bring an egg account onto the show unless it was some extenuating circumstance, and I thought it was very interesting. Okay? And then I would give a disclaimer. But the whole point here about the anonymous voice is going back to the Antifa situation. When we were watching Antifa and Black Lives Matter do their thing in 2020, and they're showing up to private businesses all over the place, and everybody's just kind of milling around waiting for something to happen. They're emotional. They're amped up. They've been locked down. They're being told that they're being hunted for their race, hunted for their sexuality, hunted this, and that, and whatever. They have to be out and protest. It's civil rights time, all that shit. The anonymous voice is not really one of reason there. It's usually the type of person who in the real world will show up with a brick in their hand and throw the first brick through the front window of the Subway franchise, and then everybody runs in and steals the cash register, the Cheetos, and all the sliced salami. That's just what's going on there. I think of them more as far as there's a lot of emotional people in the world. That is what the narratives all drive us toward. Not only to drive us into our own individual echo chambers, which is true. The left is you're always going to find a high concentration of that type of thing on the left. In the Democrat Party, you're talking about craziness, people who are really tyrannical, because that is a reflection of their worldview. They are a meddling, tinkering, highly regulatory group of people. They see the world as inherently flawed. Humanity is inherently flawed. It needs to be flattened out, ironed out, and made so-called equitable, not only for everybody now, but to make up for all the injustices that have ever been committed against all people of the world for the last 5,000 years. So naturally, they're going to be crazy, tyrannical, and if you don't give them what they want, definitely gravitate toward violence more often than not. On the right-hand side of things, if you want to call it that, we have our own issues too. We have our own psychopaths as well. And there are a lot of people, it's tough. It's tough to watch all of the purity testing that is done all the time. People are vicious with that shit. And I don't know, man. It's the internet ebbs and flows into good and bad and ugly and all that stuff. And I just wonder what you think about it. There's always talks about internet bills of rights and how to make it optimal where people are able to do things, be involved. This is a major way for a modern person to be involved in a civic sense. To write something, to comment on something, to debate something. There's a lot of people out there on the internet who are acting in good faith, and actually this is just the best way that they know how to interact and to contribute. So how do we get the best of all worlds? Or is it impossible to have something that balanced? Do we just have to take a whole lot of risk? Or do we have to accept a whole lot of slavery for another false sense of safety? I don't know. That's something to consider. 914-200-0269. There's too many of you out there to not be calling in. So let's take a really quick break for a moment for a little bit of a hat tip to our sponsors of the night. That is Rise Attire. Get out there, use the Badlands code for Rise Attire. Buy all the Badlands stuff. Rise makes all the official clothing for Quite Frankly as well. So this is just a natural match. So hat tip to Rise Attire. We'll be right back to take all of your calls because the calls are coming. I also have some show and tell as well that I know you're going to like. Be right back.
Strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I. A full commitment's what I'm thinking of. You wouldn't get this far. I just wanna tell you how I feel. Gotta make you understand. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around. Desert you.
By now, you've probably seen the new collab between Rise and Badlands Media, but I'll tell you what you haven't seen yet. The end of Clown World as we know it. But have no fear. Introducing the latest addition to the Badlands INTL lineup. The sequel to the best-selling Sci War series. We've been conditioned by these clowns to accept their circus. But it's time to unwind that and strike them out the history books. The future belongs to the real, and we've got it in droves. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/rise for the full line of premium and direct-to-garment streetwear. Made to order right here in the good old US of A, the heart of the resistance. The fall of Clown World is upon us, patriots. Let's make it official.
Don't be fooled by the internet. It's cool. It's cool to get on the computer, but don't let the computer get on you. It's cool. It's cool to use the computer. Don't let the computer use you. You all saw The Matrix. There's a war going on. The battlefield's in the mind. And the prize is the soul. So, let's be careful. Very careful. Thank you.
Ladies and gents, 914-200-0269. Let's take a gander into the super chats. Let's see here. Jay Britz on quitefranklysuperchat.com says, Frank, thank you for the introduction to Eric Hunley. Great guest. Great guest. Great channels. Great co-hosts that he works with, and he has great guests. So if I just introduce you to Eric and his work, you have a lot of fun things coming your way. Trust me. All right, over on the Quite Frankly Rumble, see how everybody's doing in there. We've got one from Jay Semo, says, Frank, fascinating guest, great show. I'm hoping you have a coffee session tomorrow morning. Oh, well, we didn't hit our goal on YouTube yesterday. But if, you never know. You never know. I got a lot of things I got to do, so I'm trying to catch up and get myself ready for a good Friday night. I think Mike Baldwin is going to be coming by tomorrow night. Another night with Mike Baldwin stopping by, and that should be a lot of fun. Let's see here. Over on Badlands. Wonderful little crowd over there on Badlands. It's good to have you guys and gals with me. Welcome one, welcome all. Poso for Hope says, Frank, did you see the work of BX on X or Rumble? Check her out. Yes, I do know BX. And she's actually who was supposed to be on Tuesday night, but we had to move her. So that's when I took the night off. BX was going to be on the show Tuesday night. So we're finding another night coming up. It's just that I have so much booked right now for weeks that we'll see. But I love her work and very, very intriguing stuff. She's been on before, obviously, so this was going to be a much needed follow-up. But yes, thank you so much, Poso. S Jones 39 says, I love that you are part of Badlands. Well, I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to be contributing. I hope that it's beneficial for all. I really do. 321, you're on the air. Welcome to the show. How the hell are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Frank. It's Patrick.
Go ahead, Patrick. What's on your mind?
Great show. Sorry. Yeah, great guest. Great topic as always. But I was thinking about how you're talking about 68% of the world now is on the internet, like a town hall, you know what I mean? And mainstream media is out of the picture just about. So what do we do? How do we get rid of the robots, the algorithms, the MK Ultra effect, and all that? I was thinking, and I think Tesla's kind of working on this, isn't he? Sending all the satellites up and saying, "Hey, we're going to have free internet," only to take the monopoly out of it. You know what I mean? The handful of Apples and Googles. And if you can at least cut those legs off, there would be, and then it would be free speech again. And then if anybody's making a joke, get rid of the robots for sure. Maybe regulate the robots and the algorithms, and every individual country's got to do it. You know, maybe start with the United States doing it, and then that's all I got to say, brother.
Okay, well, Patrick, well, thank you for the call. Thank you so much for that. If somebody wants to call in and comment on what Patrick just said, because I don't know where to start on that. Let's leave Tesla and Elon Musk out of this and just say that somebody created free internet for everybody. And they are essentially a free global internet service provider. Would that mean inherently that there's no controls on it? Are internet service providers the ones that no, I don't think that they're the ones that give any kind of, that they regulate anything. There's websites and there are applications, there are networks that use service providers, operate on it. I don't know how, if anybody out there knows how that would work. Is that an end around? I mean, it's ridiculous. In size and scope, that's a ridiculous thing. Well, all we need is somebody to give everybody free internet. Now, obviously, Elon Musk, if there's anybody that would shoot at trying to do something like that, and then you say, well, What does it really cost me if it's free? That should be the first question you always ask yourself when somebody offers you something for free. What does it really cost me? Now, you can watch this show for free every night at 7 o'clock. What does it cost you? Your time. I'm taking time from your life. Okay? I'm taking time. I've given a lot of time. I've given more time than I've taken from you. But that's where it really stops. It's, it's nothing else. Let me see. Lauren just texted me. He said, wouldn't that play into net neutrality, whatever that was from 2014? We're talking about throttling. Oh man, I'm so far removed from it all. I forget. We covered it so much. And again, it came down to free market. You started talking about free speech and how people are able to communicate, but really it was a free market issue. If somebody's out there throttling and creating different tiers that you can access the internet by putting, a dollar amount on how good your signal strength is, then what are you, is that just going to be it? Is everything going to be metered like the old days of AOL, when you go onto AOL and you're, essentially buying minutes? Oh my gosh. I think we were on the $5.99 or $9.99 a month plan where it was like 30 minutes. What were the old? Call into the show. I'm going to get into some stuff in a second. Hold on. Maybe Grok, who knows? Let me go to Grok for a second. What did the AOL minutes plans look like in 1995? Come on, give it to me. Come on. Operated for pay per minute, monthly subscription fees. AOL offered plans that include base monthly fee, which provided free online minutes per billing cycle. For example, a common plan might have cost around $9.95 a month for 3 to 5 hours. I don't think so. I think I had less than that, but the minutes just sapped away. Per minutes charges for overages, yeah. Then you get your parents will gonna kill you. Once everybody started getting unlimited, when you can pay $20 a month for unlimited, incredible. Everything changed. You remember the way that we lived back then? Your parents didn't want you on the internet. They didn't want you on AOL, or your siblings are pissed off that you're hogging the computer. What do? They go downstairs and they just take the phone off the hook, and it screws up your connection, and you just freeze up. You know exactly what happened, and then a fist fight ensues. Oh man, I remember that. I remember my mother would take away the AOL for any reason. Take away AOL, I'd be without it for months, whatever the hell it was. And I remember one time I convinced my mom to get AOL back. And Rosie O'Donnell was doing a Q&A on AOL in like one of those arts and entertainment chat rooms. And I had heard about it. And I was like, Mom, Rosie O'Donnell is going to be doing a Q&A on, you should do it. Here. Let's come on. You should really do. I remember I sold her, and she knew what was going on. But I think my mother was just intrigued by being in a chat room with Rosie O'Donnell more than she was still staunch about me being banished from AOL. And she took it. She took the bait. She at least did it. And we were back on AOL. I probably lost it again there too. I'll tell you how many times I would go into my basement where the computer was, if we did something bad or if I mouthed off or whatever, and the mouse and the keyboard would be missing. We'd go downstairs, thought we were just going to chill out a little bit, maybe not even go on AOL, play a little bit of solitaire, and the mouse and the keyboard would be missing. I'd be like, son of a bitch. I can't believe it. And then as a search for the mouse and the keyboard, where could she have hid it? And then to find extra mice and keyboard to hide in places strategic that I can take out and use when she's Oh, man. Oh, it's all the way that we lived. Call in with the way that we lived in the early internet days. Please. Let's do it. 920. What's going on, Aaron?
Hey, Frank. Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
Yeah. Do you remember the Friends and Family program? I think MCI did it. Friends and Family.
Yeah.
You get your friends to join. So I on my cable access show, I did a spoof of that called the Splint Friends and Foes program. Call your friends all you want, and we'll charge it to your foes.
That's nice.
Give us a list of your friends and your foes, and we'll take care of the rest. Whether it be your boss or your ex-wife, your bills get paid for you.
I love it. Yeah, now you can just send it to FedWire, and you can tell them I don't want this anymore, and have the federal government pay it. When you talk about that, I feel like everybody was doing some sort of a friends plan, or you can name your top 5. If you put people into your top 3 or top 5, those phone numbers are either limitless or something like that. You remember that? There's limitless calls to your closest friends and family. A lot of phone companies did that, but now it's unheard of to have any kind of minutes attached to your phone unless you get one of those disposable ones on Amazon. Thanks for the call, Aaron. It's good to hear from you. For like $20. Let's take a call. 504. Go ahead.
Hey, hon. You there?
Hello.
Hey, Frank.
Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Kelly.
Go ahead, Kelly. Good to hear from you.
Well, we didn't have the internet at our apartment, but I worked for a contractor that had the internet at the office. So when I'd go home, I'd cook dinner. After that, we'd go back to my office. I had the key to the office, and we'd sit on the internet all night. And this was, I guess, 96.
And do you remember what you were doing? Because I'll tell you, there's very little to do on the internet in 1996. Very little to do.
I believe we had ICQ, I believe was the name of it. It was like a little chat group with anybody, I guess, in the world. And some kind of way I'd gotten hooked up with a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan club. And we would send each other cassette tapes of bootleg Stevie Ray Vaughan concerts.
Wow. See, that's something right there. That's where you have the new school that was still with the old school. You're meeting up with people on this brand spanking new commercial internet. And at the same time, you are linking up with people so you can send them analog audio device, audio recordings. And so that's just a little bit of both. And thank you for the call. Thank you for the call, Kelly. That reminds me of all of those.
You.
Yeah, you too. That reminds me of all those early ass threads too. Those email threads, the email chain. You don't want to break the chain or else you're going to get bad luck. That went on for a lot. You kind of like twist your arm into things. All right, here's a little something I wanted to show you guys. I don't know. I found this. This was from like 2008. It's King. King called in. I forget what the hell the joke was, but we wanted King to say, "Hey kid, follow your dreams, kid." But for some reason, the joke had evolved into dweems, and we wanted him to say, "Hey King, can you tell us tell us to follow our dweems?" I don't know what the hell it was. It was all on air. And for some reason, Mike put the audio that King called in with to this, I guess, a mashup of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. This looks like a very old, it's not good. It's George W. Bush's face on Dick Cheney's head. It's not like some kind of a AI blending that we have today. But here's King from 2008. I thought this was funny, and still very obscure.
Don't worry about it, kid. Just follow your dreams.
He did that for us. Just follow your dreams. Just remember that if you ever need any kind of motivation, here it is again for you.
Don't worry about it, kid. Just follow your dreams.
Just follow your dreams. It'll all work out. I have something else for you real quick. You remember I told you, because, we were covering the Pope's death. And of course, there's all the the ceremonies and everything are still going on. He's lying in state for another day, I think, and then we go through everything else. But I told you that the prophecies of the last pope, Peter the Roman, what is this, Petrus Romanus? I forget what it was. Peter the Roman was going to, that we knew of this prophecy for a long, long time. Well, here is a 2007 stream from the bedrooms, 2007 or 2008. It's nearly 20 years old. And trust me, when we had already known this stuff for at least 10 years at this point, but we found this, Barack Obama, I think he might have already won, or it might be close to election. Okay, so this is 2008 then, because we're talking about Barack Obama. So this is 2008. Take a listen to this. It's me, Mike, and Anthony. At the bottom corner is Anthony and Anthony's bedroom. Mike is sitting next to him. And then me in the top left-hand corner, I'm in my bedroom. And we combined both rooms through the wires in the hallway and all that other stuff. And this was the first studio from 2006 to 2009. Take a listen to this. You want to talk about old Peter the Roman references.
February 20th, 2009, and they're inaugurating Barack Obama. Well, Mr. President, would you like to...
Wait a second. The same thing has happened again. This is the same thing that happened to me the other night. Wait a second. I'm going to put this up on screen. You remember when I played the twins talking and the dubbing was off? Let me see if this is going to work.
Can everybody just live?
Wait.
I just want
to live.
I think that what's going to happen is Obama is going to win the presidency, and then after a while, he's going to make it a Republican.
Okay, here you go. Finally. I don't know. Strange. But here you go. Here's from 2008. Take a listen to the old reference.
Can everybody just live?
I just want to live. I think that what's going to happen is Obama is going to win the presidency, and then after a while, he's going to make a public announcement saying he's the Antichrist.
Okay, and now it's January 20th, 2009, and they're inaugurating Barack Obama. Well, Mr. President, would you like to address your people? Yes, thank you. Members of the Senate, House of Representatives, and the great people at home of this great nation. First, I'd like to thank you for your votes. Secondly, my name is not Barack Obama. My name is Peter the Roman, and I'm the Antichrist.
I just love how he's in this version, in this timeline, he would then just start screaming because there's nothing you can do at that point. You've already inaugurated me, and I'm the Antichrist. He just starts screaming. Everybody runs. Oh, what a time to be alive, man. What a time to be alive. All right, let's take a call. 571, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Get dressed. Hello. You're going.
You there?
Hello.
Go ahead. You have 5 seconds. Okay. Well. That's all I have tonight. It is 8:53. And I'm really looking for, hold on. I'm sorry. I have a whole other place to go check. Witchy Poo, thank you so much. Hogleg71 over on quitefrankly.tv. Witchy Poo over there as well. And then Sea Blanche, thank you for that. It's good to have everybody chilling with me. On Badlands, there's another one, Pozo for Hopo. We talked about that already. And I just want to make sure we got all of the super chats in. And what I will leave everything open for tonight. Oh, hold on. There's one more here. This is from, the hell is this? I just missed it. Cody, Frank, have you been following the Carmelo Anthony story about the track meet stabbing? Oh, yes. I haven't talked about it on the show at all, but I've seen it. And you know what? It's just hard for me to read that stuff without getting very angry. And there's plenty of people who are just feasting on that story. So what can I possibly contribute? A black kid stabbed a white kid in the heart at a track meet with what I assume is a standard issued track knife. I don't get it. and then Give Send Go allows the family to raise over $500,000, and the kid, the murderer, moved into a $900,000 house and bought a car. They got a black activist judge that lowered the bond from $1 million to $250,000. It's just classic social justice rabble-rouser legal defense team that has been obtained and all that stuff. And if it's not stopped now, I can see a cottage industry popping up around this kind of tragedy. So I know that sane people, white, black, anything in between, look at this and say, oh, dear God. The Marxists, man, that South African Revolution Caucus that is working really hard at bringing some really terrifying times to this country, at least regionally. I think that I think you got to just watch out for those types, especially in Congress and everything else. It's crazy to see how confident the Marxist revolutionary types think that, or at least are in asserting that this is some measured act of self-defense. So over some confrontation of whether or not someone was sitting in the wrong seat in a tent or whatever the hell it was. You couldn't just have a fist fight like boys used to do over stupid shit. Produced a knife and plunged it into an unarmed kid's chest. Get the fuck out of here. So that's why I haven't been talking about it. Everybody's been talking about it. And I really hope that it is squashed in unambiguous ways judicially, or else there is going to be a cottage industry that pops up around this kind of assault. Okay? Anyway, that's it. If you have anything you want to contribute tonight on the history that we covered, William McKinley, James Garfield, RFK, MLK, whatever the hell it was. We did a lot about the internet, the nature there. How is Jordan Peterson's thoughts on the internet valid? Is he serving higher masters when it comes to considering that there needs to be some or proposing that there needs to be some kind of buffer for absolute anonymity and of a poster on the net? I don't know, but there is one thing that you have to realize, no matter what, that digital means, as we all know, is the main driver of opinion in everything now. People's experiences, no doubt. Experience is going to be number one, but there's a lot of time spent having fake experiences on digital platforms. And I don't know, hopefully we have more and more inspiration to step away from it all outside of checking in with our favorite shows, of course. But I am looking forward to getting some of your thoughts and opinions. Frank at quitefrankly.tv. Send me an email. Become a sponsor of the show. And of course, like this stream wherever you are, especially if you're watching on Badlands right now. Go and buy some merchandise at Rise Attire. Get all the Badlands merch you can. Get to the GART event on May 1st through May 4th in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And I'll see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, as we put a nice bow on this last full week of April 2025. I appreciate you all very much, and we'll be back in a flash. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Get dressed. You're going.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatter, starting with Jay Britz. And thank you to all of our great friends, Jay Semo over on Rumble. Thank you to Poso for Hope on the Badlands Rumble. Also S Jones 39. You guys and gals are fantastic. Enjoy the rerun over and over and over again. And hello and goodbye to my friends on YouTube. It's nice seeing you, as always. Take care, and like the show wherever you found it.